Just recently, four thieves drove a cherry picker up to the Louvre's second floor window, cut through the glass with angle grinders, and walked out with 88 million euros in French crown jewels, all in just 4 minutes while tourists ran screaming through the galleries. The world's most famous museum, supposedly protected by cutting-edge security, was just robbed in broad daylight with construction equipment you could rent at Home Depot. I'm Oleg G from Art Explained, simply and quickly, and today we're diving into the most audacious art heists in history. Billion-dollar robberies that prove the world's greatest masterpieces are shockingly vulnerable, and the criminals who steal them often succeed not through high-tech gadgetry, but by exploiting one simple truth. Museums are designed to let people in, which makes keeping the wrong people out nearly impossible. This October 19th heist isn't even the first time the Louvre has been successfully robbed. In fact, the museum's most famous theft created the legend of the world's most famous painting. In 1911, Mona Lisa's spoudos had disappeared from the Louvre, and what's shocking is how absurdly simple that theft was compared to the elaborate security we imagine protecting such masterpieces. On August 21st, 1911, Vincenzo Perugia, an Italian handyman who had previously worked installing protective glass cases in the museum, simply hid in a closet overnight, walked out to where the Mona Lisa hung the next morning, lifted it off the wall, removed it from its frame, tucked it under his white smock, and walked out the employee entrance. No alarms because there weren't any. No guards intercepted him because they weren't watching that section. The most famous painting in the world was essentially unprotected. What makes this even more incredible is that no one even noticed the painting was missing for 24 hours. When painter Louis Beroux arrived to sketch the Mona Lisa and found an empty space, he assumed it had been taken to the photography studio. Hours passed before anyone realized it was stolen. The Louvre closed for a week. The investigation initially suspected everyone from German spies to avant-garde artists trying to destroy bourgeois culture. Meanwhile, Perugia kept the painting in his Paris apartment in a trunk for 2 years before trying to sell it to an art dealer in Florence, where he was finally caught. Before we explore more shocking heists, I'm curious, does it surprise you that even the world's most famous museums can be robbed with such simple methods? Or do you think true security is impossible when millions of people need access? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The irony is that the theft made the Mona Lisa far more famous than it had been before. Prior to 1911, it was one important Renaissance painting among many. After the theft and dramatic recovery, it became the most recognized artwork in the world, proving that sometimes the best thing for an artwork's fame is to be stolen. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist of 1990 remains the largest unsolved art theft in history, with stolen works valued at over $500 million. On March 18th, two men dressed as Boston police officers knocked on the museum's security entrance at 1:24 a.m., claiming to respond to a disturbance call. The security guards violated protocol by buzzing them in, the first of many security failures that night. Within minutes, the fake officers had handcuffed both guards and duct taped them in the basement. They then spent 81 minutes methodically removing 13 artworks, including Vermeer's The Concert, one of only 34 known Vermeers, Rembrandt's Storm on the Sea of Galilee, his only seascape, works by Degas and Manet, and bizarrely, the finial eagle from a Napoleonic flag. They cut paintings from their frames with blades, damaging several in the process. What's haunting about this heist is its enduring mystery. The thieves clearly knew what they wanted. They went directly to specific pieces while ignoring others of equal or greater value. But despite a $10 million reward, FBI investigations spanning over 3 decades, and countless theories involving Irish Republican Army connections, mob involvement, and international art smuggling rings, not a single stolen artwork has been recovered. The empty frames still hang in the museum exactly where the paintings were stolen, a ghostly reminder of what was lost. The guards who were on duty were investigated extensively but never charged. Questions about whether this was an inside job or whether the guards were simply incompetent remain unanswered. Some investigators believe the paintings were destroyed shortly after the theft when the thieves realized they were too famous to sell. Others think they're sitting in a climate-controlled vault owned by a wealthy criminal who will never be able to display them publicly, but derives satisfaction from private ownership of masterpieces. If you're finding this video helpful, please hit like to help the YouTube algorithm push my videos to other art lovers. Want to support further? Check out my affordable membership options with exclusive perks, or simply use it to say thanks. And your support helps me create content like this every week. The 2003 theft from the Kunsthal Museum in Rotterdam demonstrates how devastatingly fast professional thieves can operate. In exactly 3 minutes, thieves broke through a rear door emergency exit, grabbed 7 paintings, including works by Picasso, Monet, Gauguin, Matisse, and Lucian Freud worth approximately 200 million euros, and escaped before police could respond to the alarm. The paintings were part of the Triton Foundation collection and were displayed in a special exhibition, making them predictable targets for thieves who had clearly studied the museum's layout and security response times. The aftermath of this theft is genuinely tragic. Romanian police eventually arrested several suspects, and one defendant's mother claimed she had burned several of the paintings in her kitchen stove to destroy evidence linking her son to the crime. Forensic analysis of ash from her stove appeared to confirm the presence of paint pigments consistent with the stolen works, though some experts remain skeptical of these findings. If true, this means Picasso's Harlequin Head, Monet's Waterloo Bridge, Gauguin's Girl in Front of Open Window, and other irreplaceable masterpieces were destroyed in minutes to protect criminals from prosecution. The cultural loss is incalculable. These weren't just valuable commodities, but unique witnesses to artistic genius that can never be recreated. The Musée d'Art Moderne de la Ville de Paris theft in 2010 exposed catastrophic security failures at a major institution that should have known better. A thief broke in by cutting through a padlocked gate and smashing a window, setting off alarms that security guards ignored because the system had been malfunctioning for weeks and generating false alarms. Security cameras weren't recording because of a technical problem that hadn't been repaired due to budget constraints. The thief, later identified as Vieran Tomic and nicknamed Spider-Man for his climbing abilities, stole 5 paintings, including Picasso's The Pigeon with Green Peas, Matisse's Pastoral, Modigliani's Woman with Fan, Braque's Olive Tree Near a Stock, and Léger's Still Life with Candlestick, with a combined estimated value exceeding 100 million euros. The heist wasn't discovered until the museum opened the next morning, giving Tomic hours of head start. Tomic was eventually arrested and confessed to the theft. His story is that he had been commissioned by an art dealer known only as Mr., who wanted specific pieces. But when media coverage made the theft too high profile, this mysterious dealer refused to take possession of the paintings. Tomic claims he panicked and threw all 5 paintings in a garbage container where they were presumably destroyed when the trash was collected. Now, I'd love to hear your perspective. When priceless masterpieces are destroyed because they're too famous to sell, does that suggest museums should be less transparent about their most valuable holdings? Or would secrecy just create different problems? Share your thoughts in the comments. Most investigators don't believe Tomic's garbage disposal story. They suspect he's either protecting accomplices who still possess the paintings, or he sold them and is maintaining plausible deniability. But without the physical paintings, it's impossible to prove what really happened. The works remain on Interpol's most wanted art list. The theft of Edvard Munch's The Scream has happened not once, but twice, demonstrating that even after one successful theft and recovery, museums struggle to adequately secure their most famous works. In 1994, during the Winter Olympics in Lillehammer, Norway, thieves broke into Oslo's National Gallery and stole The Scream in less than 1 minute. leaving a note reading, "Thanks for the poor security." The audacity was breathtaking. They committed Norway's highest profile art theft while the entire world's attention was focused on their country. The thieves were caught 3 months later in an undercover sting operation where authorities posed as art buyers. The painting was recovered with minimal damage. You'd think this would have prompted Norwegian museums to dramatically upgrade security around Munch's works. You'd be wrong. 10 years later, in 2004, armed thieves walked into the Munch Museum in Oslo during opening hours in broad daylight, threatened staff and visitors with guns, pulled both the Scream and Madonna off the walls, and walked out to a waiting getaway car. Witnesses were traumatized. The paintings, both painted on cardboard rather than canvas, making them extremely fragile, sustained damage during the rough handling. The thieves were caught 2 years later in a police raid, and the paintings were recovered, though they required extensive conservation. The repeat theft of the same artist's work from Norwegian museums became a national embarrassment and led to the resignation of museum directors and government officials responsible for cultural protection. The National Museum theft in Stockholm in 2000 showed remarkable criminal sophistication. While accomplices set off bombs and started fires around Stockholm to distract police and emergency services, 3 armed men walked into the museum, threatened guards and visitors with automatic weapons, grabbed a Rembrandt self-portrait and 2 Renoir paintings worth over $30 million, and escaped in a speedboat waiting at the museum's waterfront entrance. The level of planning was extraordinary. By creating simultaneous emergencies across the city, the thieves ensured police couldn't respond quickly to the museum alarm. The waterfront escape avoided traffic and police checkpoints entirely. The operation required coordination, resources, and inside knowledge of both museum layout and police response protocols. The paintings were recovered years later through international cooperation, and several thieves were arrested. But the heist demonstrated that determined criminals with adequate resources and planning can overwhelm even well-prepared security systems by exploiting the simple fact that police can't be everywhere simultaneously. The theft of Leonardo da Vinci's Madonna of the Yarnwinder from Drumlanrig Castle in Scotland in 2003 combined boldness with absurdity. 2 men joined a public tour of the castle, then suddenly grabbed a small painting of the wall and fled while one threatened pursuing security staff with an axe. They escaped in a white Volkswagen Golf, hardly the sophisticated getaway vehicle you'd expect for stealing one of fewer than 20 Leonardo paintings in existence. The painting was valued at approximately £30 million, but its true worth was incalculable as one of Leonardo's rarest works. It was recovered 4 years later during an undercover sting operation in a Glasgow law office. 4 men were convicted in connection with the theft, which investigators believe was commissioned by organized crime figures who understood the painting's value, but apparently not the difficulty of selling such a recognizable masterwork. The Zurich art heist of 2008 remains partially unsolved and involved staggering value. 3 masked gunmen entered the E.G. Burrell Collection Museum just before closing time, threatened staff with pistols, and grabbed 4 paintings: Cézanne's Boy in the Red Waistcoat, Degas' Ludovic Lepik and his daughter, Monet's Poppy Field at Viteuil, and Van Gogh's Blooming Chestnut Branches, with a combined estimated value of $163 million at the time. The entire robbery took less than 3 minutes. 1 week later, Monet and Van Gogh were found abandoned in a car parked outside a psychiatric hospital. Investigators believe the thieves realized these paintings were too recognizable to sell and ditched them, hoping to at least monetize the Cézanne and Degas. But those 2 paintings remain missing to this day. Theories suggest they were taken to Eastern Europe or the Middle East, where there's less art market scrutiny and wealthy collectors willing to buy questionable provenance. The theft of Caravaggio's Nativity with St. Francis and St. Lawrence from an oratory in Palermo, Sicily in 1969 is significant because of its suspected Mafia connections. The painting, one of Caravaggio's late masterpieces, was cut from its frame and has never been recovered despite over 50 years of investigation. The Italian Mafia is widely believed to have been involved, and the painting's fate remains one of art history's great mysteries. Various Mafia informants over the decades have provided conflicting accounts. Some claim the painting was used as collateral in drug deals. Others say it was hidden in secret locations and moved periodically. Several informants have claimed it was damaged by neglect or earthquakes and eventually destroyed. One pentito, informer, claimed he fed it to pigs to destroy evidence, though investigators doubt this theatrical claim. This theft illustrates how organized crime syndicates view art as fungible assets similar to drugs or weapons, commodities that can be traded, used as collateral, or liquidated for cash in criminal economies that operate parallel to legitimate markets. The FBI maintains a dedicated art crime team specifically because art theft is so often connected to drug trafficking, money laundering, weapon smuggling, and other serious organized crime activities. The Nazi art looting during World War II represents systematic theft on an unprecedented scale. Hundreds of thousands of artworks were stolen from Jewish families, museums, and private collections across Europe through a program of institutionalized robbery backed by state power. While not traditional heists, these thefts were meticulously documented by Nazi bureaucrats, making post-war restitution theoretically possible but practically complex. 80 years later, families are still fighting legal battles to recover artworks stolen from their ancestors. Museums continue discovering pieces in their collections with problematic provenance connected to Nazi looting. Ethical questions about ownership, justice, and institutional responsibility remain contentious. Should museums return artworks to heirs of original owners even if they purchased them legally decades ago without knowledge of the theft? How do we balance current owners' rights against historical injustice? The difficulty of selling stolen famous artworks is both a deterrent and a curse for thieves. The Mona Lisa, the Scream, or any instantly recognizable masterpiece is essentially impossible to sell legitimately. No legitimate collector would touch it, and attempting to sell it immediately identifies the seller as involved in the theft. This is why many spectacular thefts end with paintings damaged, destroyed, or abandoned. They're too famous to monetize despite their enormous theoretical value. This creates a paradox where the world's most valuable artworks are simultaneously the most and least attractive targets for theft. Their fame makes them valuable, but also makes them worthless on any market where the buyer requires legitimate provenance. Thieves who steal masterpieces often discover they've acquired expensive liabilities rather than liquid assets. The black market for stolen art operates differently than popular imagination suggests. Contrary to movie depictions of wealthy collectors commissioning thieves to steal specific masterpieces for private enjoyment, most stolen art enters criminal economies where it's traded for other contraband, used as collateral for drug deals, or held as a hedge against other criminal investments. The artworks themselves often matter less than their value as tradable assets within criminal networks. Insurance companies play complex roles in art theft recovery. They often pay rewards for information leading to recovery and sometimes negotiate directly with thieves or intermediaries for artworks' return. This creates perverse incentives where thieves can effectively ransom artworks, knowing insurance companies may pay substantial sums rather than risk permanent loss. These negotiations happen in shadows, rarely publicized, creating parallel recovery systems outside normal law enforcement. If you're fascinated by the intersection of art, crime, and the endless cat and mouse game between thieves and security systems that protect cultural heritage, hit that subscribe button right now and join our community of art explorers. Every week on Art Explained Simply and Quickly, we examine the hidden stories behind art's most dramatic moments. What security measures do you think would actually prevent determined art thieves without making museums feel like fortresses? Do you think the public's right to see masterpieces justifies the theft risks that come with display? How should we balance accessibility with protection? Your thoughts help us understand the complex challenges museums face protecting irreplaceable cultural treasures. If this video opened your eyes to how vulnerable even the most famous artworks are, and the shocking reality of art crime as a multi-billion-dollar criminal industry, give it a thumbs up. It helps more people discover these incredible true crime stories from the art world. See you in the next exploration.